The man that stops advertising to save money is like the man that stops his watch to save time. Ad spend is not the enemy. You need to start looking at it as an investment in the long-term health of your business. If you're not spending significantly more on advertising, that's a problem that needs to be addressed right away. And you guys need to do what it takes to be able to step back on the throttle of advertising spend. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of Triple Whale's 10 Tactics to Master Before Q4. My name is Nate Lagos, and I'll be walking you through, along with some amazing guests coming up in future episodes. If you remember last episode, we talked about how important it was to understand the problem and understand the unique challenges that e-commerce brands are going to face in the fourth quarter of 2024, because I don't believe that you have any shot of solving a problem or overcoming a challenge if you don't fully understand it. This episode is going to kind of follow along on that trend, and the next 8 are going to be super tactical. You're going to love them. But this one, we are going to learn how to accurately evaluate and diagnose your brand's year-to-date performance. Too many times I'll be hit up by a founder or a marketing leader, and they'll say, hey, performance sucks. Can you take a look? And I'll say, well, why does performance suck? And they'll tell me that revenue's down, or their ROAS is down, or their CAC's too high and they're not making any money. Those are problems. They definitely sound like problems, but they're not causes. Those metrics are symptoms of underlying problems. And too many times, e-commerce marketers spend a lot of time trying to give medicine, trying to solve for those things as problems, but they don't understand the true underlying cause. It'd be like giving penicillin for a broken arm. Like, yeah, it's medicine. It'll do a great job at knocking out a bacterial infection, but it's not going to help your broken arm. So if you don't understand what is broken in your marketing funnel, you're not going to be able to accurately diagnose what to do and what the treatment plan should be from there. So that's what this episode is going to be about. And to be able to accurately and effectively evaluate your performance this year, you need to do 2 things. The first, you need to download the spreadsheet that's available in the links of this episode. We'll tweet it, we'll send it to you, whatever you want to do. But it is a spreadsheet that contains 40-something, maybe 50 different metrics that I look at for our e-commerce brand every single week. And we look over it on a year-over-year basis as well. It's so important for e-com brands to look at their own data in context of their brand, in context of the month of year, in context of the comparison to this time last year and years prior. You know, it's amazing to look at kind of industry trends and benchmarks, and we're going to do that here in a minute thanks to some awesome new tools from Triple Whale. But the first thing I want you to do is go grab this spreadsheet and enter in your data from this year. It might be helpful to break it up by quarter if you want to. Another thing I use this spreadsheet for is if we have like 5 days in a row of poor performance, I'll fill out this data for the last 5 days compared to the previous 5 days to see what metrics change. Again, we all know what the symptoms of marketing problems are, right? Revenue goes down, ROAS goes down, CAC goes up, we don't make any money. But again, those are not problems we can just solve with a snap of our fingers. There's no button to press to make ROAS go up. If there was, we'd all be smashing it and we all wouldn't have any worries about what to do when performance goes down. We just go hit that button. Because we don't have that, we have to look at the layer of data underneath those core metrics. And we have to understand why our ROAS went up. Why is it costing more for us to acquire a customer? So that's what we're going to do today. So once you've grabbed this spreadsheet, fill it out for your data last year from January to now, and this year on the same dates. Now, filling out this spreadsheet is just the first thing you need to do. The second thing you should do is open up Triple Whale 3.0. they've launched some amazing new features that give you trends and benchmarks around how all of e-commerce brands are performing, and you can even break it down by AOV and category and size of the business. So I'm going to pop it open right now, and first I'm just going to look at kind of all e-commerce brands for this year compared to last year. I'm not putting any filters in, AOV or GMV or industry. This is just all of Triple Whale's data is at your fingertips here. It shows you metrics like CPA, cost per click, CPMs, conversion rate, click-through rate, ROAS, AOV. It has a bunch of stuff for you to look at so you can get a sense of what some industry benchmarks are, and you can start to see the trends that 2024 has uncovered. Now, looking through almost every industry, there's a couple things that I see in common with every single one of them. CPMs, cost to reach 1,000 people on your ad platforms, have gone up probably more significantly than any other metric this year. Might be thanks to inflation, that might be thanks to the election, that might be thanks to our social media executives getting greedy and charging us more money. Who knows? But it's going up. There's no denying that. Because of that, our cost per click, our cost to get someone from an ad platform to our website has gone up a lot too. So those are some metrics we're going to talk a lot about today. But this trends tool is incredibly powerful, and even when you're, comparing your data to your own brand at this time last year, it's so valuable to kind of see the trends and metrics for your whole industry. So I'm going to do this for us right now. I'm going to set the AOV segment to over $100 because that's where we are. I'm going to set the GMV segment to more than $10 million a year, and I'm going to set the industry to fashion and accessories, because if you don't know, I'm the VP of marketing for Original Grain Watch Company. We fit this criteria, so I want to see what other brands that we might run parallel to are experiencing this year and how that stacks up versus our year-over-year data, which we'll get into in a minute. But first, we see that the cost to acquire a customer is up. It's only up a couple percentage points, but it is up. That is right in line with what we've seen this year. Now, the good thing about what's happening to our brand and what's happening to most of the brands in this segment, our cost to acquire a customer has not increased faster than our average order value. So our AOV to CAC and our LTV to CAC ratio has actually improved this year. CPA is one of those metrics that I think people believe should be low all the time, and that they should be doing everything they can do to decrease CPA, their cost to acquire a customer. But I don't think that's true. I've seen time and time again at both Original Grain and other brands I have access to, sometimes cheap customers are cheap and expensive customers are valuable. And I don't know about you, but I would rather acquire as many high value customers as I possibly can than trying to race to the bottom on, the cost to acquire these customers if it means sacrificing AOV and LTV. I've got a couple episodes on my podcast called Tactical and Practical that's available everywhere that break down this exact thought, why I believe it is more impactful and more likely to be able to increase your AOV and LTV than it is to spend all your time decreasing your CPA. So all that said, as you are looking into your data year over year, it's likely that you're going to see your cost to acquire a customer has risen this year. That doesn't mean your advertising isn't working anymore. That doesn't mean you need to fire your CMO. That could be a good thing for your brand if your AOV and your LTV is increasing at least the same rate or better. Now, next up on this list, we see that CPMs and cost per clicks are up for this segment of Triple Whale benchmarks that I'm looking at, which is again $100 AOV and up, 10 million a year and up in fashion accessories. That's right in line with what we've seen this year. Our click-through rate has gotten much better this year thanks to our amazing content team. But despite that, it is still costing us significantly more to get someone from Facebook, our main advertising channel, to our website. Which again is why it's so important to be able to get more out of them than we did in years prior. One of our main focuses this year has been CRO or PRO, which we call it, profit and revenue optimization, on our website. Now, Rising CPMs are going to continue to plague us at least through November of this year. I talked about that last episode with the election. It's not something we're going to be able to do too much to change. Maybe you can loosen up your targeting on these platforms a little bit. Maybe you can try to consolidate your campaigns, and that should have a impact on decreasing CPMs. But across the board, CPMs are up this year, so you need to find a way to get more valuable site visitors and get more people who come to your site to buy than you have in years past. Conversion rate has gone up slightly. We've seen that as well this year. Click-through rates also gone up, like I mentioned. Blended ROAS and MER have both improved this year for every brand in this segment. Well, not for every brand, on the average. So that is great to see. We have seen that as well, where we have scaled ad spend drastically, about 70% this year, and our MER and our blended ROAS has stayed the same, which we are very happy to see. I'd make that trade a ton more times if I could. Obviously, that's really valuable. And the last metric on here, AOV has gone up 7%. We've seen that as well. Even though we've been doing a lot of testing prices and testing offers, and a lot of times the lower prices on those product tests are winning, but our upsell strategy is working to counteract that. So our AOV has grown this year, even though kind of our average price per watch has come down. So I bring all this data up, and I bring Triple Whale Trends and Benchmarks tool up because no matter what your year-over-year data says, it's good to just get a gut check on the industry. And it's really good to kind of come into conversations with your marketing team with context, right? If you were my boss and you saw that CPMs were up a ton this year and our cost per click on Facebook was up a ton this year, you might think I'm doing something wrong. You might think something about our ad creative or our Facebook ad account structure, or you might think the fact that we're spending the majority of our money on Facebook and not somewhere else could be a problem. But when you look at the results for us this year, and we're doing significantly better than last year, and you consider the fact that every brand is dealing with this year, then you might realize that that's not the place to put all your focus. It might not be smart for you to go into Q4 only optimizing for your cost per click from ad accounts, right? The goal is to make the business grow and make it grow profitably. So don't get too hung up on any of those kind of micro metrics, as I call them, but it's good to know what's happening in the industry so then you can really understand what to focus on with your own brand. Now, I'm going to put the trends tool away, and we're going to go back to the year-over-year data on your brand specifically, so you know exactly what your marketing playbook should be between now and the fourth quarter. All right, so you've got the spreadsheet now. You have entered in your data from last year to date compared to this year to date, and that last column is going to be the year-over-year percent change. Now, if you're having a better year than last year, it's going to be great to see exactly why. You're going to be able to understand, what time and money investments have been paying off this year. If you're having a worse year, you're going to be able to accurately diagnose what went wrong, and you can start working on all of those metrics that turn red when the percent changes come in. So starting at the top, the first thing we are going to measure is revenue. That's a pretty obvious one, I think, and it's good to see when it grows, but really only when it grows as long as bottom line is growing as well. But we're going to look at revenue first, which, again, is not the problem. When someone comes to me and says, hey, something is wrong, revenue is down, that's a symptom, right? And it might be a symptom of you're not spending enough on ads. It might be a symptom of a lot of your ad spend is being wasted. Might be a symptom of your conversion rate is down. So revenue being up or down doesn't tell you much, but if it's up or down by big percentages, you want to dig into those other metrics to see exactly why. The next thing we are going to look at is returns. This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot in e-com, but customer returns and canceled orders happen. And I think it's really important to track this year over year. I've been at brands where no one's paying attention to it, and we get to the end of the year and we're like, oh, returns doubled this year, and we're not really sure why. And I'm fortunate enough to be at an amazing brand right now that doesn't have this problem, and We stand by the quality of our product, so we're good on that front. But it can be really devastating and detrimental to the bottom line of your store, even if all of your marketing metrics look great. Even if you grow by 50% year over year at a MER or blended ROAS target that everyone's happy with, you could get to the end of the year and realize that you actually didn't make any money. So I put that at the top. I think that speaks to your product quality, which I think all of us in e-com could improve our product to a degree. I know that's not a popular, sexy thing for, a lot of us personalities to talk about, but nothing solves marketing and business problems like a fantastic product. The next thing, I think it could be an indicator of a misalignment of who you're selling it to, or a misalignment of the promises you're making about your product in the marketing materials compared to the actual customer experience when they get it. You have to make sure those are aligned. You can't promise the world and then under deliver a subpar product. So I like to track returns right in line with revenue and everything else we're looking at on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. The next thing we're going to look at is your total marketing spend. I define this by advertising spend plus marketing team overhead. So that's software, that's personnel, that's contractors, that's content creation, it's influencer deals. Anything that I, as the VP of marketing, spend money on goes into this bucket of total marketing spend. Now, you can break this out between ad spend and fixed costs as well. That's what we usually do, especially when looking at it year over year. It's important to see how that number changes. I have the strong belief that I want the highest percentage of my total marketing spend to be devoted to ad spend as possible. I like to run my teams really lean and mean. I like to pay a few people really well to do elite work and spend the vast majority of our dollars on advertising. So we keep our tech stack pretty lean. We keep the personnel on the team lean. We use contractors to supplement when we need to. And we just have built a small team of killers that can get it done. I think it's really easy in e-commerce to have kind of like team creep or like tech stack creep where you don't really think about it because no one person and no one software is really that expensive. But I've been at brands where, we look at this year over year and we're like, oh, shoot, our marketing fixed costs went up 40% this year. We weren't really keeping an eye on it. So I think this is super important to look at total marketing spend, total marketing fixed costs, and then ad spend as well, which is this next metric here. We're going to dig into this a lot on the next episode. That's going to teach you how to create an accurate forecast for this Q4, both with your top and bottom line goals, and then forecast your ad spend by day. But I think this is so important to look at because I think it's really common for e-com founders to set top line goals every single year. It's a little bit less common for them to set bottom line goals, and it's even less common for them to set advertising spend goals. But I think it's really important to do that. A lot of us in e-commerce fall into the trap of when marketing performance is down, the first move is to cut ad spend. But I'll steal a quote from Henry Ford. He said, "The man that stops advertising to save money is like the man that stops his watch to save time." In other words, it doesn't work. You're not really doing anything by cutting advertising spend. Ad spend is not the enemy. You need to start looking at it as an investment in the long-term health of your business. All these customers that we acquire, and every customer that's on your list that you now look at as a retention play, was once a customer that converted off an ad that you paid to acquire. So this is kind of the first underlying cause that could be a reason why your revenue is down. If you're not spending significantly more on advertising and you had a plan to significantly grow this year, that's a problem that needs to be addressed right away. And you guys need to do what it takes to be able to step back on the throttle of advertising spend. Like I said, we're going to dig more into this on the next episode when we forecast Q4 by day, so you guys can know exactly what to expect from October 1st to December 31st. But if your goal this year was to grow by 30% and you fill this out and you've only spent 15% more money on ads this year, that's why you're not growing faster. That is the reason for sure. You should be planning to increase that as much, if not even more, than you're planning to hit your Q4 goals. The next two metrics, MER and blended ROAS, they're the same thing. I just know some people like to look at it as a percentage. Some people look at it as a number. So a MER of 50% would be a blended ROAS of 2. However you want to look at it, that's fine. This is another one of those metrics that are symptoms. They are never the problem itself. If these things are better than last year, great, keep going. If they're worse, you need to understand if that's a problem, and if it is, why is that a problem? So we're going to keep moving through the list. We look at cost of goods sold as a marketing metric. I highly encourage your marketing team to have visibility into this so they can understand really how different offers and pricing and discounting strategies actually affect the bottom line. So we like to look at COGS as both a percentage of revenue and as a dollar amount. We look at a percentage of revenue when we're tracking daily and monthly, and then we true up with the dollar amount at the end of a quarter or at the end of a year just to make sure we're in line. A lot of people don't really look at COGS as a marketing metric, but it can have a huge impact. And understanding this for me and my marketing team has given us the freedom to test different prices and offers that we never really would have tested because they go against, our desired, margin goal. But when we look at a product that we can decrease the price on a little bit and it increases conversion rate so much on that it doesn't matter what our, margin percentage is, the total dollars being added to the business are coming in way faster. So please make sure your marketing team understands what it really costs to make and deliver a product into our COGS. We include pick and pack fees, shipping, everything it costs to really get a physical product to the customer's hands. All right, moving along the list, maybe the most important metric on here, contribution margin. This is what a lot of e-com brands are using today for their marketing teams. It's not exactly profit, probably does not include, the salaries of the leadership team, probably doesn't include purchase orders of future inventory, but this, when measured correctly, can give you a really good, accurate view of how many profit dollars you're actually adding into the business and marketing's effect on the total growth of that bottom line. We track contribution margin daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, and we make sure to true it up at the end of all those periods as well, because I think all of us in e-commerce at one point have made the mistake of spending a ton of money on ads, running up that top line number, celebrating, cheersing, popping a bottle if you're like me, and then you get to the end of the year and you're like, oh, where'd all the money go? It's because we weren't tracking contribution margin either at all or accurately enough, or we weren't doing it by day. But this has become our North Star metric for the last year and a half, and it's really freed us up to make an impact on the business. In years past, we handcuffed ourselves to an arbitrary ROAS goal or a MER target because we really didn't understand the scale that we could unlock if we were willing to sacrifice that. Right. So kind of the old way, let's call it like e-commerce 2.0, the last era, especially if you came up, in the last decade, the 20 teens. It was very common to say like, hey, we want to hit a 3x MER. If we're better than a 3x MER, we can spend more money on ads. If we're worse than that, we need to cut ad spend back until we're hitting a 3x MER. I believe that is fundamentally the wrong way to approach growing an e-commerce brand, because I can give you a business that's making $1 million a year at a 3x, or I can give you a business that's making $10 million a year at a 2x that makes way more money on the bottom line. I'd rather that business every single time. So we track contribution margin daily, and what that has done has allowed us to see when we scale ad spend up 60, 70, 80% year over year, we can tolerate a much worse ROAS and a much worse MER than we ever thought possible, and we're still doubling bottom line growth from last year. So please make sure you run the numbers of your own brand. Input every cost you can, the marketing team, ad spend, COGS, whatever else is going out the door. Make sure you're tracking some form of contribution margin or some form of profit every single day. The results might surprise you. We'll dig into this next episode when we talk about forecasting, but some of the math gets really interesting when you scale up ad spend for a holiday season like Christmas. Even if you're performing a little bit worse on an efficiency standpoint, it might actually be in your interest to spend more money on ads than you were planning if your goal is bottom line growth. Make sure you come back for next episode. I'm realizing as we go through this how valuable this piece of it can be. Honestly, if you just listen to the first 3 episodes of this, you're going to be in great shape for Q4. And then the last 7 are going to deep dive on a couple things that are really going to enable you to unlock some serious growth. But next episode for sure, make sure you come back for it. In addition to tracking contribution margin dollars daily, we track contribution margin percentage, like as a percentage of revenue. That's just kind of a health check on the state of our business. We have seen that decrease slightly as we've grown. We've also seen that not always correlated with ROAS or MER. So right now, how we're growing, our contribution margin percentage is slightly better this year, even though our ROAS is slightly worse. It's because we are spending so much more. It's because we have, more than covered all of our fixed costs. We kind of reach escape velocity there. So contribution margin has actually grown a little bit faster than revenue this year. All right. Now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of your advertising and website performance here. The next metric is site sessions. How many people are coming to your site? If this number is down, it might be because your ad spend is down. It might be because your click-through rate is down. It might be because CPMs are up. So even though you're spending the same amount of money on your Facebook ads, you're reaching less people. Therefore, less people are coming to your site. This goes hand in hand with the next metric of cost per site session. I look at this on a blended metric. So I don't just look at, the cost per click from your Facebook ad account. I take total site sessions and divide them by total ad spend. This provides me just kind of directionally on a weekly basis, how efficient are we being with our advertising dollars? How effective are our advertising efforts? Now, we also track new site visitors and returning site visitors. So that kind of, brings retention into it. So on a given week, if I see that my total site sessions are down 10%, but our new site sessions or new site visitors are flat, then I know all right, our ads are doing the same thing they were doing a week ago. I probably don't have to worry about those. Something happened in our email or SMS campaigns where less returning customers are coming back, or maybe, our retargeting advertising campaign isn't doing its job either. So I like to separate those between new and returning site visitors. So that we can really understand which area of the business needs to improve. Advertising, top of funnel, or retargeting or retention efforts. The next metric we're going to look at is orders. Just simply how many people are buying from you. Even more important than orders, even more important than conversion rate, I like to measure revenue per session. I believe that gives a more holistic view of how your website is actually performing. You heard me say it earlier in this episode. We don't really like to call it CRO when we talk about testing our website, because I think conversion rate without context can be a misleading metric. Here's what I mean by that. I could double your conversion rate tomorrow, guaranteed. If I stopped advertising, if I shut off all your ads, your conversion rate would double tomorrow. Then the next day, if I send an email for a 70% off sale, your conversion rate will double again. So conversion rate in isolation doesn't really tell you anything about what's going on and doesn't really help you optimize for business growth. Because again, we're going to spend time on each of these metrics, looking at how to improve them. But improving any one of these is not more important than improving the overall business goal, which is to make a bunch of money. So don't kind of get lost. What's the saying? Don't lost the trees in the forest, or can't see the forest in front of the trees. Whatever that dumb saying is. Don't let any of these smaller metrics get in the way of profitable growth. That's what we're all after. So optimizing for conversion rate can be kind of a losing game, because it could cause you to, get less new visitors to your site. If new visitors go down, your conversion rate will go up, and you could be really focused on retention and not acquisition, which might look profitable for a month or so, but eventually that pool is going to dry out. So all I'm saying, look at revenue per session as kind of your North Star for website performance, because revenue per session includes and takes into account your conversion rate and your average order value, which I think is really, really important. So that's why I said we don't call it CRO at Original Grain. We call it PRO, profit and revenue optimization, because that's the goal of all of our on-site testing. It's not to increase conversion rate. It's to increase profit first and then revenue. Now that we know what an important metric revenue per session is, here are some quick things you can do to improve on them. Test the prices of your highest volume products. Test them higher and lower. Measure profit per session to make sure you're factoring in COGS into that equation. But we price test our products at least once a quarter, and we definitely will be leading up to the holiday season as well. It's incredibly important. You can also test your offers. If you typically run a 20% off sale, see what happens if you run a 25% off sale. See what happens if you run a 15% off sale. Again, those will definitely have an impact on conversion rate, and a bigger sale might lead to a bigger increase in conversion rate. But if that conversion rate increase isn't big enough to make up for the lower margin per order, then you're not actually doing what you want to do. So that's why we use revenue per session. Make sure you're testing prices, offers, content on your website is a big one. Later in this series, we're going to get into how I write headlines and how I write copy with Sarah Levinger that really converts and can actually influence people to buy more. Those are kind of the big buckets that make up our PRO work and our on-site testing strategy. We have not invested a lot in really testing site structure, changing where buttons are, changing how things look. Our biggest wins to increase revenue per session have come from testing prices, offers, and content on our website. All right, next up, we're going to look at repeat orders, repeat revenue, and repeat customer percentage. I look at all three of those specifically because, again, one of them in isolation doesn't always tell you the full story. Let's look at repeat orders first. We obviously don't want that number going down. I also like to look at that because repeat customer percentage, the one that you see on your Shopify dashboard, can be skewed depending on how fast you're scaling acquisition. Like this year, for example, our repeat customer percentage is down, but we're getting more repeat customer orders and more repeat customer revenue. So it's not a red flag that that's down. That just speaks more to how quickly we're growing acquisition. It's just that acquisition is outpacing recurring customer orders, which is fine with me because, again, orders and revenue are up. It's a good thing to look at, and I think it's really good to look at, again, if the goal is to grow a long-term, healthy, profitable brand. You want to make sure that these customers you're acquiring actually are producing an LTV, which is next up on the list here. We look at new customers acquired, cost to acquire them, AOV and LTV, kind of in their own section here, because, again, we want to make sure we're looking at these in context. So for us, our new customer acquirers has gone up so much this year, huge percentages, and our CPA has gone up a little bit. And I'm okay with that because our AOV and our LTV are growing faster. So again, this is where you as a leader, either a founder or CMO, VP of marketing, you need to make sure you have the whole story when you're talking to and directing your marketing team. It's why we put together this whole episode of accurately diagnosing performance. Because, if you give your team a goal like, keep CPA at $100, that could really put handcuffs on them that hinder your ability to grow the business profitably. Because if you just let them spend $110 to acquire a customer, AOV and LTV might go up by $80. And that's not that extreme of an example. That's similar to what we've seen this year. And it's been massively beneficial for us to be able to spend more to acquire a higher value customer. I touched on it in an earlier episode. I'll continue to touch on it. My 10-word e-com strategy is acquire as many high value customers as you can afford. And I think that, really speaks to what I'm talking about here. Acquire as many high value customers as you can afford. I didn't say, cap your CPA at something that you think nets out good margin wise. Again, don't look at any one of these metrics in a bubble. That's why they're kind of broken out into these sections, so you know that you should be looking at your blended CPA compared to your AOV and compared to your LTV. And if you want to take it a step further, you can put COGS in here too, so you can kind of look at profit per customer acquired. That's why I put new customer ROAS in here, so you can see, cool, when I spend $1 on ads to acquire a customer, we're getting a 2x on that. After we take out 30% for COGS and 10% for overhead, we're netting 10% on a new customer acquisition. And whether or not that's great for you depends on the brand, but at least, tracking new customer ROAS, CPA, AOV, LTV, and profit per acquisition can really give you a strong and data-driven roadmap of how you can grow the business. All right, now we're going to get into the ad platform itself. There's a wealth of data in your Facebook ad account. Same can be said for any platform you're advertising on, but for sake of simplicity and for sake of most people are spending the majority of their money on Meta, that's what we're going to focus on here. I look at Facebook ad spend just like I look at total ad spend. If you're planning on growing 50% this year and you're not spending 50% more money on Facebook, then that might be a red flag. Facebook ROAS and attributable revenue are symptoms. Those are not problems that you can work on directly, but this next chunk of metrics is all going to funnel into and add up to those attributable revenue numbers. We touched on Facebook's CPMs earlier. We know they're up across the board, but I look at another metric as well. It is called cost per 1,000 accounts reached. You can create a custom column in your Facebook ad account. I think the metric is called exactly cost per 1,000 account center accounts reached, which basically means it's your unique CPM. It's your cost to reach 1,000 unique people. I believe that's a lot more accurate way to view the effectiveness of your advertising dollars. Because at the beginning of this year, when we looked at our CPMs, it was up like 10%. And we were like, well, that's not that much. This shouldn't be too big of a deal. But then we looked at this unique CPM, or our, cost per 1,000 accounts reached. And it was up like 40% from last year. And our frequency had gotten really high. And part of the problem was the account structure that we were using. We would, start to run a few parallel campaigns to the same audience that we didn't need to. So that can be a really eye-opening metric to look at. Compare that year over year, because what you see might really shock you. And you might see we only thought CPMs were up 5 or 10%, but that number was up 40 or 50%. It's like, okay, that is a problem. To reach new, unique people, we're spending 50% more on Facebook. That needs to be addressed. For us, we consolidated our ad account down to just 3 campaigns. Our main one, which I don't know what you want to call it, just kind of like our evergreen product offers, prospecting. The next one is an Advantage Plus campaign. That first campaign is CBO, broad targeted, highest volume, no cost caps. Second one is an Advantage Plus campaign that we put our sale and gifting messaging into. So we start to spend more on that one around Father's Day and Christmas and Valentine's Day. Those are the only place we ever promote a sale in our advertising account. The last one's a DPA retargeting campaign. So consolidating from 8 campaigns down to 3 has brought that unique CPM down quite a bit. I highly recommend you do the same. The next 2 metrics are going to tell you how your creative has been performing this year. I like to look at unique outbound clicks. So not just clicks, not just link clicks, but unique outbound clicks on Facebook. Again, you might have to go into, their customized columns option to find it. But that effectively shows me, cool, what's it actually costing someone to get to our website? So I look at unique outbound clicks, unique outbound click-through rate, and the cost per unique outbound click. Again, that just gives me a more comprehensive view than a standard cost per click does. But CTR is the ultimate metric, or in this case, unique outbound. CTR is the ultimate metric to tell you how your creative itself is performing. We test about 10 ads a week. It's not a ton, but it is enough for us to advertise every product we want to sell and create a diversity in our ad account. We have really tried and kind of pushed the limits to expand our creative diversity this year, especially as we've launched new products and new collections, and our customer avatar has changed slightly. We really like to continue to push the boundaries into new formats, new vibes, new emotions we're targeting, because that can all change year over year. And the reason that people bought from you, or the type of person that bought from you a year ago, might not be the same kind of person that's buying from you today. So if your click-through rate has decreased drastically, I would get on and spend a lot of time creative testing. I'd invest in new content creators. We currently have 2 in-house creators, and then we also have a few freelancers as well that we tap, especially as we approach big sale periods like Christmas. We'll go get 10 more creatives just to make 10 statics ads for us each, or a couple videos for us. Creative testing has been one of the ways we've been able to overcome increased CPMs this year. Even though we're spending about 100% more on Facebook this year and CPMs have gone up, our cost per click and our cost per unique outbound click haven't risen as much as CPMs because our click-through rate has improved a lot. So this can be massively important. If you are spending way more money on Facebook to get someone to come to your site than you used to, I would consolidate your account, I would broaden your targeting, and I would relentlessly test creative. Now, relentlessly test creative does not mean you got to test 50 ads a week. I think you need to be intentional with what you're testing. I think you need to create high quality content. I do not believe in this model of kind of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, because you just kind of end up with a sticky wall and you don't know why or how or what worked and why it worked. So I prefer to kind of take a sniper rifle approach instead of a shotgun. Really narrow in on who your customers are, understand what they value, understand their ideal outcome when they buy from you. Episode 4, we're going to talk a lot about this topic with Sarah. We're gonna learn how to create that content that actually hits people and tugs on their heartstrings like we want to around a gift giving season. So if cost per click is up and CTR is down, get back in the lab, get back in the studio, get back in Photoshop or Canva or CapCut or your favorite creation tool, and get to work on showing off your products in new, unique ways. All right, getting down towards the end of our list here, we're going to talk about Google briefly. We this year are in a unique position where we are spending much less money on Google than we have in the past. 2023, we spent a lot of money on PMAX and kind of trusted Google when it said it was working. This year, we cut most of that, so we're spending less. But take a look at how much of your exact Google spend is going to branded search terms. Those should be performing excellently, and see how much you're spending on non-brand display, shopping, PMAX. It can add up, and it either can or won't be really impactful, but it's important for you to measure here as well. Now, getting into kind of your retention channels, email and SMS can be really important. A few rows up, we looked at repeat customer orders and revenue and percentage. Again, those can just be symptoms of what underlying problems are. So what the underlying problems could be are the number of campaigns you're sending. Could be your revenue per recipient on flows. Could be your open rates. Could be your click-through rates. Could be your average order value from customers from email and SMS. So make sure you are tracking these metrics weekly, at least monthly if you're not, and definitely compare them to year-over-year performance. You might see that you're leaving a lot of money on the table based on who you're sending emails to, how often you're sending emails to them, and how relevant the offer and the content is that you are blasting out every single day. While every brand needs acquisition to continue to grow, so much of our profit comes from repeat customers because we already paid that CAC. So do not overlook these channels. Do not overlook, an 8% decrease in open rate or a 4% decrease in click-through rate. Those can be really impactful to your business. I think it's a channel that doesn't get as much praise and attention on here because we all like to talk about Facebook ad tactics, but retention can be so powerful, especially when we talk about holidays like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and Christmas. So make sure you really understand this. If your revenue is down, start testing your campaign cadence, the content, the offer. If your email welcome flow or browse abandon or any one of your automations is performing worse this year, look at how relevant the content, the products, and the offer are in those flows compared to what landing page or what ad someone came in on. This year, we've been really intentional about making our customer journey make more sense from top to bottom. So if someone sees an ad about one of our Whiskey Barrel watches, they're going to go straight to our Whiskey Barrel watch landing page. And if they land on that page and opt into the pop-up on that page, their welcome email flow is going to only showcase our Whiskey Barrel watches. It's not going to show any other products on our site till like email 4 or 5 because we know what piqued their interest originally. So therefore, we're going to try to continually sell them on that until we kind of prove we can't. If your new email subscribers have not grown as fast as your site traffic has grown this year, look up your pop-up engagement rate. Look at what you can do to improve that. If the offer on the pop-up isn't grabby, or if the structure of the pop-up isn't as noticeable, or if it's too annoying, or if the delay is too long, these are all things you can test to make sure that you're going to get most out of your email and SMS channels as possible. I hope when you fill out all this data and you compare it to the Triple Whale Trends and Benchmark tool, you will really start to see some areas that could be improved for you as we approach Q4. If you're anything like me, there's a handful of things that we're really going to focus on. We're going to look at revenue per session. We're going to look at click-through rate on our ad account, and we're going to look at revenue per recipient on our retention campaigns this year. And we're going to make sure we do the work between now and November 1st to get those metrics as high as possible to help us achieve our larger business goals, which of course, as much contribution margin, as much revenue as possible. Take the time to fill out this chart year over year, and then maybe even fill it out for last year's Q4. Next episode, we're going to talk about forecasting. We're going to use this spreadsheet again, so you can start to get an understanding of what this Q4 should look like and the big changes you need to make from what you've been doing so far this year already. Thank you so much for listening to episode 2 of Triple Whale's 10 Tactics to Master before Q4. The next episodes, I've recorded them already. They're amazing. They're jam-packed with tactical value, and they are going to be so beneficial for so many e-com brands out there. I really can't wait to get them in your hands. So please stay tuned. Follow me at Nate Legos everywhere. Listen to my podcast, Tactical and Practical. And of course, make sure you are following and subscribing along to this series under the Triple Whale Network. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.